is rosy. Things are going to be as rosy in the Eurozone as what they may think. A lot of those numbers, again, out of Greece, were far worse than what they originally said. The recovery, we're looking at 2014 now versus 2011. There's a lot of things that suggest that this could also bleed off into Ireland, into Portugal, into Spain. So we don't really, not to mention those other Eurozone countries that we haven't even looked at yet. So again, we are at the mercy of the market here somewhat to begin the week, but looking at this from a longer term perspective, it does suggest that Euro US is going to continue its move lower. Now, going into our final pair here, we're going to go into, we're somewhat longer this week, but I think it is better to take a longer view and make sure that everybody understands what's happening so we don't get caught in these whipsaws. Looking at the pound dollar. The pound dollar's crossed over again to the downside. It's tried to retrace, hasn't been able to get back above. Now, much like these medium-term, again, using the medium-term crossover from Vantage Point, every time this medium-term crossover has taken place, there's been no less than a 300 pip move. So we've just crossed over, this medium-term has just crossed over to the downside again, actually just last week, off this 154 level. We've moved all the way down to just above the 151. So again, we've had essentially another 300-point move. This medium-term crossover from Vantage Point, very powerful. So let's go in and have a look with the triple EMA. Where are we setting up this week from this perspective? Now, again, the triple EMA crossover is used to identify critical levels of support and resistance from a longer-term perspective. Now, looking at the looking at the triple EMA crossover here, we can see that we're getting ready yet again just off this 153, about 153.20 area to cross to the downside yet again. So we've closed the week at 152.96. This 153.12 area is going to be a critical level. Anywhere below 154, to be perfectly honest, guys, is setting up what appears to be a sell. But again, if those equities turn around, the Greece bailout thing comes around, then pound dollar could go flying higher in just a matter of hours. So we have to take that into consideration. We have to see, I think we're going to have a very nervous market to start the week. So the best we can do this week here without going into a lot of analysis is to identify these levels. So 153.12, we're going to see how the market reacts to that on the open later today. Right now we're sitting at Sunday morning. Everybody can see here at 9:52 a.m. So we have to see how the market is going to view all this, take this in, how the equities are going to respond. Right now, this triple EMA crossover is not complete. It's running flat, but it's getting ready to cross. Now, if it does, we can see that the pound dollar just last month, March 24th, we were sitting at the 147, 148 level. So there's certainly room for a big move lower here. Now, if we don't get this move, I want to point out also that, again, we've had this crossover to the upside. It's lasted for about a month. Now, is this just a correct? This certainly does look like a corrective move in the broader downtrend to me. We can see here, I'm going to back this off just so everybody can see this for a 6-month period. Again, always looking at that longer term outlook, not the short term. This certainly looks like a corrective move here to me. It certainly doesn't look like a reversal. We've got the triple EMA crossover that originally took place in the 166 level. We then went all the way down into this 158, corrected back up to 164.50, and then just a complete collapse all the way down to the 148, 147 level. Very powerful move there. You know, you're talking a couple of thousand pips almost in the course of a month and a half. That's an incredible call right there on Vantage Point. So I was in part of that trade myself. I've been in and out of it, in and out of it. I move from different currency pairs depending on what's happening in the market. But certainly from this standpoint, this week we're either going to see a base in the Great Britain in the pound dollar and start moving higher from this point, or we're going to get into a much bigger move to the downside, potentially back towards that 135, 138 level. So that will be left to be seen. But again, this triple EMA crossover is trying to make that move, and if it does, the outcome is likely to be the pound is going to sell off completely. Now, before we close out this week, we're going to have a quick peek here at gold and crude oil. I certainly think they're worth a look. Gold has been working on its own. It hasn't been following the US dollar. It hasn't been following equities. Gold, guys, this week has just been trading on gold, which is kind of nice for a change because, you know, gold has been following those equities, or negative. If the U.S. dollar sells off, gold moves higher. Well, this time it's moving on its own. The outlook here for gold suggests it's going to move higher. I believe that gold is also going to follow what's happening in the Eurozone, and that people are just going to move out of some of these currencies right now altogether into the safer bet, which is the metals. So let's have a look at the triple EMA areas to identify here for you gold traders and equity traders and currency traders alike. 150.160, 162.30, and 172.30 are your key levels of support. We've closed at 1180.70. Only a sustained break of 1151.60 will take the pressure off the downside. Very important that everybody remembers this, that we've got this crossover. Again, looking at these gold contracts, I'm going to back this off a little bit so everybody can see. We've got a 6-month outlook here on gold. The move lower certainly does look corrective to me right now. Targeting this 1220 area is certainly possible. However, once we get up there, it would definitely need to break that area, or else we're probably looking at a fairly significant collapse on the gold futures contracts. Now, another one we want to look at here is crude oil contracts. It made a reversal to the end of the week. To end the week, we've crossed over to the upside. We've closed here 86.15, but again, a lot of resistance in between where it currently is now and this 87 level. So if crude oil contracts hold this, the US CAD, the Canadian dollar in general, is likely to move higher. The US dollar likely to move lower. However, if this area gives way, which I suspect it probably will, then that would translate into a weaker Canadian dollar and into a stronger US dollar. Now, again, to illustrate this pattern that we've seen here, we're just going to quickly pull this up and put it up against the Canadian dollar. Okay, just so everybody can see this, crude oil contracts right here. This is a very rare thing, that what we're seeing here. Normally these two run when one crosses to the downside, the other one crosses to the upside. The US Canadian dollar has crossed to the upside. However, so has the light sweet crude on a medium-term outlook. So on the medium-term outlook, very rare that we would actually see the US Canadian pair and New York light sweet crude move up at the same time. Normally as the crude oil contracts move higher, again, that suggests a stronger Canadian dollar. So let's actually have a look at this for a second, this correlation that we've got, because I can, with using the Vantage Point software, I can take my indicators here and apply them to both at the same time. Now, looking at this from a longer term perspective, we can see that the picture's not quite as clear. The Canadian dollar is breaking higher, but crude is running a little more flat here. So if this continues to move forward, then this would suggest that crude oil is going to fail at this level. Now again, hitting the triple EMA crossover and applying it to both so everybody can see this, we've got the US Canadian pair and the crude oil contract, even on the triple EMA crossover, moving higher together. So this is a good sign here, guys. What this suggests is that the Canadian dollar is going to have to trade on its own merits, and it can't simply run piggyback to all of these commodities, specifically the metals and more specifically the light sweet crude oil. So to begin the week, we'll be watching those crude contracts, but if the crude sells off, which I think it will, that'll put even further pressure on this US-Canadian pair. This triple EMA crossover should be able to complete, and an extension higher should happen. Now again, the Eurozone is going to dictate a lot of this, but we'll be watching how the market, specifically the equities, respond to the Greek bailout, and we'll go from there. So that is the Forex market outlook for May the 3rd, 2010. And again, my name is Greg Furman, market analyst here at TraderPlanet.com.